first thing I saw when I stepped out of the car wasn't the house. It was the chaos. My clothes, my memories, my life, scattered across the front yard like trash. After 3 exhausting days of meetings in Chicago, all I wanted was a warm shower and the comfort of my chair by the window. But instead, my chair sat crooked beside the mailbox, soaking in morning dew. Photo albums I'd guarded for decades lay open, their pages fluttering in the wind. My mother's china, the last piece of her I had left, was shattered on the driveway like crushed bone. And then I heard her voice. "Finally, you're back. Clean up this trash. I need the room for my yoga." Thalia, my daughter, my only child. She stood in the doorway, tall, polished, dressed in designer yoga pants that probably cost more than my entire outfit. Her tone was casual, cold, and sharp enough to draw blood. "I told you last week," she said, rolling her eyes. "I'm converting your room into my meditation space." I stared at her, unable to breathe. "You, what?" "You can sleep in the guest room. You're hardly ever here anyway." The humiliation hit like a punch. This was my home, the one I'd worked 22 years to pay for. Every brick, curtain, and flower outside was mine, yet here I was, being told to move aside like unwanted clutter. Neighbors paused their morning walks, watching quietly as I knelt among the debris of my life. For a moment I wanted to cry, but something inside me hardened instead. The exhaustion melted into something sharper. Enough, I thought. You have no idea who your mother really is. My name is Eleanor Hayes, age 63. Retired teacher, widow of a man who died before our dreams could. For 30 years I lived in this house, raising a daughter who swore she'd never forget my sacrifices. When Thalia sent me that message last week, "Mom, don't worry about the house. I'll take care of it while you're gone," I believed her. I trusted her because that's what mothers do. I left my home spotless, my plants watered, and a note on the fridge that read, "Love you. There's soup in the freezer, coming." Back to this battlefield of broken memories wasn't something I'd prepared for. I looked around at my neighbors. Mr. Keller from next door gave me a sympathetic look but didn't dare interfere. People rarely do when dignity bleeds quietly. I bent down, picking up a photograph. Me holding Thalia on her 5th birthday, frosting on both our faces. The edges were damp, smudged, as if the past itself had started to fade. I clutched it to my chest, trembling. Not from anger, from disbelief. When I stepped inside, the scent of lavender candles and expensive incense replaced the familiar smell of home-cooked meals. The walls were repainted in sterile white. My photographs, our family's laughter, were gone. In their place, minimal art, crystals, and a large mirror with her reflection centered like a queen. Boxes labeled Mom's stuff sat stacked in the hallway. Each one taped, labeled, and ready to disappear. I walked to my old bedroom door. It opened to a room stripped bare, my books gone, curtains replaced, and on the floor where my bed used to be, a yoga mat rolled open like a statement. There were voice recording scripts on her desk titled, "The Path of Self-Empowerment." She was recording motivational podcasts now, teaching strangers about empathy and letting go. The irony almost made me laugh. Then I noticed the envelope on the dresser. It wasn't addressed to me. It was from the realtor. My breath caught. I tore it open. Inside, an agreement form. Property transfer. Eleanor Hayes, Thalia Hayes. She'd started the process of selling the house. My house. I heard voices in the kitchen. Thalia and her husband, Mark. They didn't know I was standing just beyond the hallway. "She's getting worse, Mark," Thalia said, her tone dripping with irritation. "Every time she's here, she makes me feel guilty about everything." "I can't live like this," Mark sighed. "Then do what you said you'd do. Finalize the transfer. She'll understand eventually." "She won't," Thalia snapped. "She'll cry and make me the villain again. But I'm done playing caretaker. She's a burden, Mark. You know it. A burden. The woman who worked night shifts to put her through college. The woman who pawned her wedding ring to pay her tuition. A burden." I held my breath, hand pressed against the wall, heart hammering. Every word felt like a blade being twisted deeper. Then laughter, soft, cruel, shared between them. "She should be grateful I'm giving her the guest room," Thalia said. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was planned humiliation, executed perfectly. When her father died, Thalia was 16 and angry at the world. She slammed doors, skipped school, and screamed that life wasn't fair. And every time, I stayed patient. I worked 2 jobs, teaching during the day, cleaning offices at night. I'd come home past midnight, find her asleep on the couch, and whisper, "Someday you'll understand." I wanted her to chase dreams I never could. When college acceptance letters came, she hugged me and cried, promising she'd make me proud. I sold my engagement ring to cover her tuition. I told her it didn't matter. But it did. It mattered, because that ring was the last piece of the man I loved. Still, I told myself love wasn't about keeping. It was about giving, now. Decades later, standing in my hollow home, I realized she'd learned only the taking part. That afternoon, when the sun began to fade, I sat quietly on the front porch. I'd packed a single suitcase, some clothes, my late husband's watch, and the photo I'd rescued from the lawn. Thalia came out, holding a smoothie, phone in hand. "So, are you staying in the guest room or not?" she asked casually, not even looking at me. I looked at her for a long moment. My voice was calm when I said, "No, you can have the house." Her eyes flickered with surprise. "Really?" "Yes," I said. "But be careful what you build on someone else's foundation. It has a way of cracking," she smirked, assuming victory. "Finally, some peace," I smiled faintly. "Peace isn't something you win, darling. It's something you earn." I turned, picked up my suitcase, and walked down the steps. Not hurried, not angry, just done. Each step felt lighter than the last. Behind me, she didn't call out. She didn't stop me. That was her choice. This was mine. For weeks, I stayed at a friend's cottage by the lake. Mornings were quiet, and for the first time in years, my reflection looked peaceful. No chaos, no guilt, just me. Occasionally, I'd check my phone. Missed calls, texts, half-hearted apologies from Thalia. "Mom, can we talk?" "It's not what you think." But I'd already learned what silence could teach louder than words. Forgiveness wasn't forgetting. It was freedom. Then came the call. From the bank. "Mrs. Hayes, are you aware your daughter's loan application was denied? The house is still under your name." I smiled faintly. "Yes, I'm aware." Because I hadn't signed the transfer papers. She thought she could humiliate me. But she underestimated the woman who taught her everything about resilience. A month later, I received an envelope. Thalia's handwriting this time. Inside, a note that read, "Mom, I lost everything. Mark left. The deal fell apart. I don't know what to do. Please call me." I read it twice, then placed it beside my teacup. For a moment, my heart ached. Then I whispered to the quiet room, "Now you'll learn what walls without love feel like." But I didn't wish her pain, only understanding. And maybe someday when she stands alone, staring at something she once called hers, she'll remember the woman whose love built it all. I returned to the window, sipping tea as dawn broke across the lake. The reflection of sunlight on water looked like forgiveness, gentle, endless, distant. I closed my eyes and smiled. They threw me out of my home thinking they'd broken me. But in truth, they freed me. When I found my own signature on a paper I never signed, I didn't scream. I just stared at it, quiet, cold, steady. The same hand that once wrote bedtime notes for my daughter had now been forged to steal everything I owned. "मुझे hired help के साथ छुपाया गया था कल के wedding में," I whispered to myself. "और आज मेरा पूरा past मुझसे छुपाया जा रहा है." It wasn't humiliation anymore. It was erasure. And I was done watching my own life disappear. After I walked away from that house, I thought silence would heal me. I rented a small apartment near the lake, started volunteering at a library, and told myself I'd stop caring. But mothers never stop caring. They just learn to hide it better. Last week, a letter arrived from the bank addressed to Eleanor Thalia Hayes, POA. POA, power of attorney. My stomach turned. I never gave anyone that authority, not even my lawyer. I decided to visit the branch the next morning, pretending calm while every step felt like a battlefield. I wore my navy blue dress again, the one from the wedding, like armor. The bank manager was polite, too polite. He asked me to wait, offered coffee, then returned with a folder thick enough to hold my entire history. "Mrs. Hayes, these are the documents you requested," he said. Inside were statements from all my accounts, plus transactions I didn't recognize. $2,000 here, $5,000 there. Withdrawals every few weeks. Each one signed E. Hayes. At the bottom, stapled neatly, lay the form that froze my veins. Power of attorney. Thalia Hayes. Authorized to manage all assets in case of medical incapacity. The date? The week I was in the hospital for knee surgery. The signature? Perfectly copied. My daughter had practiced her mother's handwriting better than she ever practiced gratitude. I went home shaking, called the property office to check my house records. While on hold, I scrolled through my email and found a trail of forwarded messages, sent accidentally to an old shared inbox. They weren't meant for me, Derek. Once she's declared mentally unfit, we can sell the house. Costa Rica by December, Thalia. She'll never see it coming. I just need the doctor's letter after her next checkup. My vision blurred. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every "I love you" whispered into her childhood now condensed into one line of betrayal. She'll never see it coming. They were planning not just to take my home, but my sanity. I placed the phone down gently, almost reverently, like setting flowers on a grave. When Robert died, Thalia was 7. I remember the night clearly, the thunder outside, her tiny hands clutching my arm. I told her, "We'll be okay, sweetheart. Mommy will fix everything." And I did. I sold my car to pay his hospital bills. I worked 3 jobs to keep her in private school. I learned to sleep on buses between shifts because taxi fares were too expensive. When she graduated, I stood in the back row, clapping until my palms burned. She didn't see me then either, too busy posing for photos. But I didn't mind. Love to me was silent labor. Now I realized silence had cost me everything. That night, I drove back to my old neighborhood. The porch light of the house I built was still on. Through the window, I saw Thalia and Derek laughing, glasses raised. I parked across the street and watched for a long time, not with hatred, just clarity. I wasn't the helpless old woman they thought I was. While they spent, I had saved. Over the years, I'd invested quietly in 3 rental properties under my maiden name, Ellen Monroe. I had over $1 million in assets, untouched, untraceable. I smiled. If they wanted to erase me, I'd make sure they disappeared from my will instead. The next morning, I visited my lawyer. We rewrote everything, my estate, my accounts, my house title. I left one final clause. All property and funds belonging to Eleanor Hayes shall be transferred to the Hayes Education Fund for single mothers rebuilding their lives. That was the moment I stopped being a victim. A week later, Thalia called. Her voice trembled for the first time. "Mom, the bank froze the account." "What did you do?" I took a deep breath, letting the lake breeze fill the silence. "I just corrected an old mistake," I said softly. "You." She tried to shout, but the words cracked. "You can't just take it all." I smiled sadly. "You're right. I didn't take anything. I just reclaimed what was mine." That night, she came to my apartment door, red-eyed, shaking, furious. "Do you hate me now?" she whispered. I looked at her. The same little girl who once clung to my hand crossing the street. "No," I said. "I pity you, because you sold love for comfort and you lost both." She turned away, and that was the last time I saw her. Months passed. My health improved. I spent my days reading to children at the library and evenings walking by the lake. One afternoon, the local paper ran a story. Young couple arrested for financial fraud and identity theft. Their names, Thalia Hayes and Derek Coleman. I didn't feel joy, only closure. The following Sunday, I visited the old house one last time. It was empty, windows boarded, paint peeling. I touched the front gate gently. "Goodbye," I whispered. Not to the building, but to the years I wasted trying to be loved by those who only knew how to take. As I walked away, sunlight broke through the clouds, warming my face. For the first time in decades, I didn't feel small. I felt whole. Some wounds don't bleed. They just sit quietly inside your heart, waiting for time to forget them. But time never does. Tell me, would you forgive a family who made you feel like a stranger in your own bloodline? Or would you walk away with your dignity, leaving behind everything you once called home? The most painful betrayal doesn't come from enemies. It comes from those you raised, Q1. Have you ever been excluded or humiliated by your own family? Q. If you were in her place, would you confront them or walk out silently? Q3. Do you think karma really returns what we deserve? Or does it forget the kind-hearted first? But what happened after that night, no one in that family could ever forget. Next episode, the letter they tried to hide.